The chapter begins with Jin Woo leaving the hospital where Jinho's father had been admitted. Now that things were settling down, Jin Woo considered returning to Japan to wrap things up. However, he was reminded that his shadow exchange skill was still on cooldown for another 1 hour, 54 minutes, and 11 seconds. With some unexpected free time on his hands, Jin Woo found himself unsure of what to do. He had no one in particular to call. The thought of Hunter Cha Hayan briefly crossed his mind, but he quickly dismissed it. Instead, he decided to look for an unclaimed dungeon to clear while waiting. The scene then shifts to a luxurious mansion. Behind its grand doors, the national-level hunter Christopher Reed was sleeping soundly. Suddenly, he sensed something unusual and woke up. He put on his robe and stepped into the hallway, immediately noticing the eerie silence. Curious and on edge, he grabbed a glass of wine from a nearby table and hurled it to the ground. The glass shattered, but made no sound. Alarmed by this unnatural phenomenon, Christopher stared down the main staircase and called out, asking who was there. His thoughts drifted back to a recent conversation with Deputy Officer and Ms. Sellner, who told him that if he ever needed help, he could reach out to Chairman Go Gun-hee to be connected with Jinwoo. He began to wonder if they had foreseen this moment. Suddenly, a sharp swoosh cut through the silence. A blond man in elaborate clothing radiating a powerful aura appeared before him. Christopher observed quietly as a blue aura began to envelop him. Behind Christopher, 2 other figures emerged. Christopher demanded to know who they were. The blond man ignored the question and told Christopher that he wouldn't be able to save anything if he continued to fight while trying to protect humans. He then addressed him as a fragment of brilliant light. Christopher was startled. This man had just spoken in the language of beasts. He questioned what the man meant. The blond stranger shushed him, replying that he wasn't speaking to Christopher, but to the one connected to him. Energy flared around Christopher as he asked if they were joking. Flames erupted from his body, consuming his robe. His eyes glowed fiercely. His face took on a beast-like appearance, and he snarled, "At least one of you will die by my hands today." The 2 figures behind Christopher whispered among themselves. One speculated if this was a spiritual body manifestation, while the female asked if such power could truly come from a mere human. Fueled by rage, Christopher launched into a fiery assault, setting everything around him ablaze. "Die, you damn monsters!" he roared, his voice echoing through the mansion. A series of deafening explosions followed, accompanied by shockwaves as flames surged outward, engulfing the entire area in destructive heat. Back in Japan, Jinwoo took a moment to check his current status. He had reached level 122, and all of his stats had noticeably increased. His list of passives, active, and job-specific skills had also grown significantly stronger. Satisfied, he briefly reviewed his equipped items, noting the improvements in both gear and power. Now in a car, Jinwoo stared out the window at the cheering crowd. A small smile crossed his lips. Over 100,000 people had gathered along the streets, hoping to catch a glimpse of Korea's strongest hunter. Beru, standing beside him, remarked that Jinwoo's loyal subjects had gathered to pay their sincere respects and suggested he raise his hand in acknowledgement. Jinwoo replied with mild amusement that Beru was mistaken. Later, Jinwoo boarded a plane bound for South Korea. Sitting beside him was a familiar face, Adam White. What are the odds of running into a familiar face on a flight? Jinwoo mused, then turned to Adam, asking if he really thought this was just a coincidence. Adam smiled and replied, "If that's what you believe, great. But I know you don't." "Nice to meet you again, Mr. Adam White," Jinwoo greeted. Adam expressed his honor at meeting Jinwoo again, despite having only met once. In truth, Jinwoo had forgotten about him. Beru was the one who reminded him of Adam's name and emphasized the importance of maintaining dignity as a king. Jinwoo remarked that he thought negotiations had fallen through. Adam admitted it was rude to show up without notice, but insisted he had something important to discuss. Jinwoo asked if the United States was also facing issues with an S-rank gate, but Adam clarified that the matter was different. Those threats had already been handled. Adam opened his laptop and showed Jinwoo a video. In it, firefighters struggled to contain a raging blaze. One of them yelled that the flames weren't ordinary, and another warned someone to step back. One spark could turn them into ashes. As Jinwoo watched, he asked what the video was about. Adam urged him to finish watching and then revealed that the man responsible for the fire was none other than Christopher Reed, one of their national-level hunters. A force of 1,800 firefighters and 14 of their top-ranking mage-type hunters had been mobilized to control the blaze. Jin Woo commented on how intense the flames were and speculated there must have been some sort of conflict. That's when realization struck. Christopher Reed might already be dead. Adam confirmed it with a solemn nod. The video cut to Christopher's corpse. His arm had been severed, his body covered in claw marks and dark bruises, and the ground around him was shattered from the intense battle. Adam then pulled a photo from his pocket, which shocked Jinwoo. It was an image from the Federal Bureau of Hunters. Jinwoo's expression darkened. Without warning, a violent purple aura burst forth from him, squeezing Adam tightly in midair. The aura intensified, warping the laptop, while Jinwoo growled, "Is this some kind of joke? You won't leave this place alive." Adam's companions sprang into action, but he ordered them to stand back, struggling to speak under the pressure of Jinwoo's power. He managed to say, "The man in the photo, he emerged from a dungeon. He might not be the person you remember." Jinwoo was stunned. Adam continued, explaining that the mana waves the man emitted were similar to that of a magical beast. He had attacked one of the United States S-rank hunters without warning. Adam asked if Jinwoo remembered the explosion at the Bureau headquarters a few months ago. That was the incident he was referring to. A crack echoed from Adam's neck, a sign of how tightly Jinwoo was squeezing him. "Are you saying this was my father's doing?" Jinwoo asked. Then, with a tap of his finger, the pressure dropped, and Adam collapsed, gasping for air and clutching his neck. Adam went on to explain that Jinwoo's father vanished after knocking out one of their hunters. Since then, they had searched everywhere, without a single trace. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. "I understand how you feel," Adam said. "But he became our prime suspect because he ticks every box." Jinwoo then asked why Adam had shown him the photo. Adam explained that with the upcoming International Guild Conference, the Federal Bureau planned to issue a global red notice. In other words, their investigation would no longer be done in secret. The chapter ends with Jinwoo's face bathed in a cold glow. His expression was serious, and his eyes shone ominously. The chapter opens with Adam White informing Jinwoo that the Federal Bureau of Hunters is planning to issue a global red notice for his father. This move is prompted by a recent incident that resulted in the death of a national-level hunter, a loss considered critical by the U.S. government. Adam emphasizes that they will do everything in their power to capture the culprit. However, Adam also clarifies the Bureau's intent to maintain a good relationship with Jinwoo. That is the reason he came personally, to give him a heads-up before the investigation becomes public. He warns that Jinwoo might be shocked if he suddenly sees his father's face pop up during the international conference. Jinwoo silently reflects on his father, who had gone missing 10 years ago, and wonders how he could have returned as a magic beast. Adam's colleague notices his weakened state and asks if he's okay. Adam responds that he's fine, just feeling a little weak. Beads of sweat still roll down his face. Inwardly, he questions whether Jinwoo had used telekinesis on him. Based on what he knows, even high-ranking mages can only manipulate objects at best. But Jinwoo seemed to operate on an entirely different level. Only national-level hunters were supposed to wield such powerful abilities. But now Adam realizes he was wrong. Standing before him is the 6th national-level hunter. He decides to inform the deputy director as soon as possible. The scene shifts to a discussion of the International Guild Conference, a major event where top guilds from various countries are invited to discuss the current state and future of the hunter industry. A few days later, the Federal Bureau of Hunters releases the list of invited guilds: the Scavenger Guild from the US, the Sicario Guild from Mexico, the Ajin Guild from South Korea, and the Ira 8 Vitae Guild from Italy. This year, the Ajin Guild is selected to represent South Korea, and the news makes headlines both domestically and abroad. With Sung Jinwoo as its top hunter, he also serves as the guild master. The Bureau's decision to invite the Ajin Guild is viewed as an official recognition that Jinwoo alone is powerful enough to rival other elite guilds worldwide. The scene transitions to a press conference in South Korea, where reporters interview Choi Jong-in, the guild master of the Hunters Guild. A reporter asks for his thoughts on the Ajin Guild being invited instead of the Hunters Guild. Zhang Yin directly responds that the Federal Bureau made the obvious choice. When pressed for clarification, he smiles and confirms again, yes, it was the obvious choice. Another reporter questions whether a one-man guild should represent the nation. Zhang Yin replies, yes, but in this case, that one man is Jin Woo. He explains that if a guild member is defined as someone who can be mobilized in battle, then Jinwoo essentially commands hundreds through his shadow army. Having personally witnessed Jinwoo's capabilities, especially during the Jeju Island incident, he believes the Ajin Guild could compete with any guild in the world. Zhang Yin admits it stings a little since the Hunters Guild has always represented South Korea in past conferences. They had even renewed their passports in preparation. Still, more than disappointment, he feels proud. He's proud that South Korea now has a hunter capable of standing on the front lines against threats others couldn't handle. In fact, he and his guild members survived thanks to Jinwoo's help. He's genuinely happy that Jinwoo was chosen. As he walks out of the building, one of his agents informs him they've secured a permit for an A-rank gate that spawned in Susio earlier that morning. The mana levels aren't high, which pleases Zhang Yin, who praises the agent's work. He then asks if the Ajin Guild applied for the raid permit. The agent replies that they haven't. They've been unusually quiet lately. In Zhang Yin's thoughts, it's already been 4 days since Jinwoo returned from Japan, yet he hasn't appeared at any gates. Other guilds are celebrating this, but Zhang Yin isn't like Baek Yoon-ho of the White Tiger Guild or Lim Tae-gyu of the Fiend Guild. To him, celebrating just because the apple fell from the tree makes them no different from monkeys. The agent chimes in, noting that with the Ajin Guild inactive, their own profits have increased by 40%. Irritated, Zhang Yin mutters that he's just spotted another monkey. The agent, not hearing him clearly, asks him to repeat it. Zhang Yin brushes it off with a never mind, then asks whether the Hunter Association has noticed anything. He reflects that before Jinwoo's reevaluation, he used to clear 3 to 4 low-rank gates daily. After becoming an S-rank, he began raiding dungeons in other guilds' districts. He even went to Japan recently to single-handedly shut down an S-rank dungeon break. Now, it's strange that there's no movement from him. Meanwhile, inside the Korean Hunters Association, Woo Jin-shul informs Chairman Go Gun-hee that someone from China has requested information about Sung Jinwoo. When asked what kind of information, Jin-shul says it's not personal details, but public documents like news articles and raid records. Chairman Go expresses disbelief, remarking that China surely doesn't expect access to the personal data of one of Korea's top hunters. Curious, he asks why China is suddenly interested in Jinwoo, considering that Jinwoo had already declined all offers from foreign governments. Jin-shul clarifies that the request didn't come from the Chinese government, but from an individual, Liu Jigang, China's only 7-star hunter. In China, they follow a unique hunter ranking system where 5 stars represent the highest tier, yet Liu Jigang is the only hunter to ever be awarded a 7th star. Chairman Go wonders why someone of his stature would take interest in Jinwoo. Jin-shul speculates it may be because Liu Jigang recently fought one of the giant-type beasts. Since Jinwoo defeated the rest, that might have sparked his interest. Chairman Go smiles, thinking, the strong recognize the strong. He instructs Jin-shul to deny the request or only send surface-level information. The scene shifts to the Scavenger Guild's headquarters in the U.S., where Thomas Andre's secretary, Laura, informs him that Jinwoo is scheduled to arrive the next day. Thomas is surprised. It feels like time flew by too quickly. Just then, a man enters, Hunter Huang Dongsu. Thomas tells him he came at the right time and that there's something he needs to hear. Thomas approaches and warns him not to mess with Sung Jinwoo. Dongsu appears shocked, and Thomas continues. He knows about what happened between Jinwoo and Dongsu's brother and suspects Dongsu is curious about the truth. Dongsu starts to object, but a powerful aura bursts forth from Thomas's hand, engulfing him. In Thomas's eyes, visible behind his glasses, glows a terrifying yellow light. Dongsu, now sweating and trembling, is frozen in fear. From a distance, Laura watches silently and thinks that Dongsu should have kept his mouth shut. There are few hunters who could threaten another high-ranking hunter, and Thomas Andre is one of them. Still, she knows Dongsu is just as obsessive about hunting targets as Thomas is. Thomas places a hand on Dongsu's shoulder and once again tells him not to mess with Jinwoo. He suggests Dong-soo to take a vacation at the guild's villa during the conference. He then asks if Dong-soo will comply with this earnest request. With no other choice, Dong-soo agrees. "Good," says Thomas, motioning for him to leave. Dong-soo walks out silently while Thomas and Laura watch him. Laura asks whether Dong-soo will actually listen. Thomas replies, no, he's not going to let go that easily, and orders Laura to keep a close eye on him until Jin Woo leaves the States. Will he accept that? Laura asks. Thomas responds, I'm sure he'd rather be frustrated than dead. The chapter ends with a shot of Dong-soo's furious and bitter face, clearly showing he has no intention of following orders. The chapter opens in the United States, where representatives from various guilds arrive one after another. Their vehicles display their national flags, and agents from each group gather outside the building hosting the International Guild Conference. Among the arriving guests, 2 hunters are greeted by a barrage of camera flashes and reporters. They are introduced as members of Germany's Richter Guild, with Guild Master Leonard Neerman leading the delegation. As they proceed, Leonard remarks on the overwhelming media presence. His companion replies that the South Korean hunter everyone has been talking about is expected to arrive today. Leonard spots a man in the distance and asks if it's the hunter they're referring to. His companion nods in agreement, saying, Speak of the devil, that's him. Curious, Leonard suggests they introduce themselves, believing there's no harm in getting acquainted with a powerful hunter. However, as he approaches, he suddenly freezes, flinching as a wave of fear washes over him. His companion notices his hesitation and asks if he changed his mind. With a nervous expression, Leonard asks if he can't see them, referring to the countless shadows surrounding Jinwoo. Leonard, still visibly shaken, says Jinwoo doesn't summon his soldiers from another dimension. He brings them with him. As he stares at Jinwoo's shadow army, he realizes this man could wage war against the United States with his forces alone. Jinho and Jinwoo also notice the 2 German hunters. Jinho asks if Jinwoo knows them, but Jinwoo replies he doesn't, likely just foreigners staring at him. Jinho jokes that Jinwoo's fame is spreading and maybe they just want his autograph. Suddenly, Jinho spots Hunter Woo Jinshul and asks why he's here, surprising Jinshul enough to cough awkwardly. With little enthusiasm, Jinshul says he's been assigned as Mr. Sung's bodyguard. Jinho chuckles mischievously and whispers to him, Sorry, I didn't catch that. Jinwoo then observes a group approaching and notes they seem to be there to welcome them. It turns out to be Adam White, accompanied by several agents from the Federal Bureau of Hunters. Jinwoo asks Adam if he isn't supposed to be in charge of the Asian branch. Adam laughs and replies that he was, until recently. Now, he's responsible for handling communications with him. Adam suggests that the rest of Jinwoo's group be escorted to the hotel first. Jinwoo agrees and tells Jinho to go with Mr. Woo, to which Jinho nods. Adam then asks Jinwoo to accompany him alone, hinting that the discussion might concern his father. Sensing the seriousness of the matter, Jinwoo's eyes glow faintly purple. Adam assures him that he has nothing to lose by hearing them out. The Bureau has already made their stance toward Jinwoo very clear. As they head out, Jinwoo asks if the matter is confidential. Adam confirms that some of the information is top secret. Inside a limousine, Jinwoo asks where they're headed. Adam answers, to the Federal Bureau of Hunters headquarters. This surprises Jinwoo, and Adam admits that, to be honest, the Bureau is currently in a state of emergency. With Christopher Reed gone, one of America's core national-level hunters, a huge portion of the country's military strength has vanished. For now, Adam says, everything remains quiet because Reed's death has not yet been made public. But soon, they'll have to do everything in their power to fill the void. Jinwoo asks if he is one of the candidates. Adam nods. Adam then activates a holographic display, revealing a classified file, a dragon's bone, and a rune stone. He explains that, as Jinwoo likely knows, the value of a rune stone is directly proportional to the power of the beast it came from. What they're dealing with now is tied to the most catastrophic event in human history, a raid everyone wishes they could forget. The dragon. Kamish. Adam says they are currently searching for the rightful owner of the rune stone extracted from Kamish. He then asks Jinwoo for his thoughts on the offer. But Jinwoo, eyes narrowed, asks him to go back to the previous slide. Adam confirms if he's referring to the photo of Kamish's corpse, to which Jinwoo quickly follows up with more questions. Has the U.S. preserved Kamish's body? Where is it being kept? Can they visit it? Adam is caught off guard but confirms that the corpse exists. However, he doesn't personally know its location. Only higher-ups have access to that information. Still, he believes the Bureau would be more than happy to comply with his request. Adam asks if Jinwoo is willing to wait while he seeks permission. Jinwoo replies that he'd rather go along and wait there. Adam's face reflects subtle anxiety upon hearing this. The scene shifts to Director Brennan's office. Adam informs him that Jinwoo is in the building. Brennan asks what Jinwoo said about the rune stone. Adam admits he barely brought it up. Jinwoo only seemed interested in Kamish's corpse. Surprised, Brennan says he needs to discuss the matter with Mr. Connor and asks Adam to wait outside. Once Adam leaves, Brennan asks Connor why Jinwoo would want to see the corpse. Connor admits he doesn't know for sure, but one thing is clear. Jinwoo isn't there for sightseeing. He adds that rune stones are incredibly valuable, and high-ranking hunters are willing to pay immense sums to obtain them. Skills grant power, and a hunter's survival depends on their power. So, perhaps seeing the corpse might provide Jinwoo with more benefit than acquiring a new skill. Brennan notes that Jinwoo can only summon the beasts he defeats himself. Connor suddenly freezes as a chilling realization hits him. What if he can create a soldier from a beast defeated long ago by someone else? Connor gasps. My God, is he trying to turn Kamish into one of his summoned beasts? Outside, Jinwoo waits, his body subtly radiating a purple aura. Back inside the office, Brennan slams his hand on the desk, exclaiming that they cannot allow a single individual to wield such immense power. But Connor argues that if they reject Jinwoo's request, maintaining a good relationship with him would become difficult. Holding his head, Brennan thinks for a moment before deciding. He will personally escort Jinwoo to the site. It will also serve as an opportunity to see what Jinwoo is truly capable of. The next scene takes place in an elevator. Brennan mentions that he would have preferred a formal sit-down meeting, but since Jinwoo insisted, this would suffice. Adam translates Brennan's words to Jinwoo. Jinwoo, deep in thought, is struck by disbelief. The Bureau had built their headquarters on the very site where Kamish was defeated. As they walk down a hallway, Brennan instructs them to follow him. A heavy door opens with a beep, and Jinwoo immediately senses the mana lingering in the air. He realizes that if Kamish's mana still lingers after 8 years, the dragon must have been unimaginably powerful. He wonders just how strong it would be if he managed to turn the beast into a shadow soldier. The massive skeleton of Kamish comes into view. Brennan explains that Kamish had killed hundreds of elite hunters before being slain by the last 5 remaining national-level hunters. Since then, the corpse has been preserved exactly as it was. In fact, the entire building is powered by Kamish's essence stone. Brennan asks Jinwoo if he's satisfied. Jinwoo doesn't respond. Instead, he calmly says, "Please stand back." As he approaches the corpse, Connor nervously asks Brennan if he's sure about this. Brennan nods, confirming Jinwoo has his permission. A dark aura begins to emanate from Jinwoo as he steps forward. Raising his hand, Jinwoo speaks the command, "Arise." A violent explosion erupts. A shockwave spreads through the room. A system notification appears. Shadow extraction failed. 2 attempts remaining. Jinwoo pauses briefly, his eyes still glowing with determination. He closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and prepares once more. Again, he utters the word, "Arise." His will to command the most powerful magical beast reverberates through the chamber. A powerful gust of wind sweeps through the room. The purple aura envelopes Kamish's corpse, shadows beginning to wrap around it. Then, the shadow extraction succeeds. The lights overhead flicker. The chapter concludes with a ferocious roar echoing through the chamber, signaling the rise of something truly fearsome.